All right. I know you're from Canada, Donny, but where exactly were you born?
Kitchener, Ontario, which is right near Toronto.
And what kind of...
At like 3, we moved to Vancouver. So really, I feel like I'm from BC.
Uh-huh. And I always knew you as the golden boy, so I just assumed you had a nice, easy life, but you didn't. You had a difficult childhood, didn't you?
I mean, everything's relative, right?
Yeah.
I mean, compared to some people, I probably had an easy one, but yeah, it was definitely challenging in its own way, and it certainly created a lot of learning opportunities for me, but it definitely presented a lot of challenges. So I think I really, all in all, have to feel pretty fortunate that I had love in my family for my siblings and my mom, and there was just some real dysfunction in the household due to my father and then stepfather.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
Well, my mom and father had 4 kids, me being one of them, and then my mother had a daughter with another man, and then my father had a couple of kids with a couple other women. He had 5 marriages, my mom 2. So between them,
That's a lot of people.
yeah, a lot of people.
What kind of kid were you?
I was pretty quiet. I'm just third child, so I had an older brother who was fairly dominant. My sister was very loving and supportive to me. But when you're a third kid, you're pretty much end up being quiet because everybody else is making the noise. And I was fairly soft actually, and kind of shy and quiet.
Mm-hmm.
But life has a way of toughening you up, I guess.
Yeah. And who got you interested in boxing?
I guess you have to say the fact that I had to essentially fight my way to school, because I was at Catholic school and the Protestants lived in the same housing project, for instance, as us. I had to fight through them to get to my Catholic school, because they would stand in line and make me fight each one until, well, my mom started that. She said, if you're all going to be gang up on them, you're going to fight them one at a time. So she would stand and ref, and I would fight each guy, and then eventually get to school. And then she goes, well, if you're going to have to do this every day, just go to school. You better go to the boxing club and learn how to fight. So I did, and that's when I really started boxing.
Yeah.
But then we moved out somewhere in Vancouver. Then we moved to northern BC, where there was no boxing. There was only hockey.
Mm-hmm.
So I played hockey. I did very well in hockey, but I didn't have the structure to continue. So we then moved to Winnipeg from northern BC, and where I was playing hockey, and that's when I started boxing again. So, generally speaking, the story is that I started boxing from watching, Wide World of Sports and seeing a guy on there and just thinking, geez, I want to, look like that guy feels about himself. I want to have self-esteem. I want to feel good, and I want to do something that builds my self-confidence, because kind of home we come from doesn't. And I was telling this to my older brother, and we started that day, went for a run, the next day went to the gym, started boxing. But really, now, I think it's true as you asked, and I don't know what brought this up, but really that's what started it, was trying to get to school.
That's cool. And were you good right away when you went back to the gym? Or I guess you started when you were younger. Were you good right away at that age?
Boxing for some reason came to me very naturally.
Mm-hmm.
It was never a challenge. I mean, there's physical challenges, there's conditioning, there's tons to learn. I wasn't born, advanced as a fighter, but it always came quite naturally to me. I never really struggled in boxing. I always really enjoyed myself and was, capable of, as they say, make them miss and make them pay,
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you were 11-4 as an amateur, so not much experience at all. So it becomes so much... I'm sorry. I didn't want to...
Again, with a very unstructured life, and from living on the street at 15 years old, I wasn't focused on amateur, and I didn't care about amateur. I wanted to make money, so I wanted to be pro. So I was only doing amateur because I had to. The pro promoters said, you got to have some fights.
Mm-hmm.
So I did some fights, but I really wasn't into it. I didn't train really, and I was just sort of like buying time until they would let me turn pro. When I turned pro, I took it very seriously.
Yeah, it's so much more impressive when you think you only had 15 fights as an amateur, and then so it was kind of like you were in like an apprenticeship program type thing when you first turned pro. You were learning on the job and stuff.
Yeah, I guess you could say that.
And who'd you turn pro against? Do you remember his name and what the outcome was and where it was?
Yeah, Kenny the Boilermaker Nickel in Winnipeg, Canada. 4 rounds. I stopped him in a second.
That's it.
When the ref stopped the fight, I thought, I don't know why he's stopping it, and I don't know who won, but I don't care. I'm so tired.
How'd you
and
feel?
then at the center of the ring, when the refs can raise their hands, we're standing there. Yeah, it's over. I mean, I know he's all beat up, and he goes, "Boy, that must have been fun, eh?" And I looked at him and I went, "Geez, I don't know who I was fun for, but it wasn't for me." Yeah. So anyway.
So how did you feel after getting your first pro win? Then you
Oh my God! Yeah, I was floating. After one fight, I said I was going to be a world champ.
Wow.
That's how good I felt about it.
Yeah. You had aspirations. That's good. You went 4-0, and then you lost a 6-round decision to Wilmer Johnson. How did you feel after the decision was announced?
Well, it wasn't a fair decision. When I walked back to the cornerman, it's so ironic because a minute ago, before I called you, I was sending an email to this very guy.
No, wow.
But in the corner, Vampire Johnson's cornerman was Pete Susans. And as I walked back to the corner with him to say congratulations, Pete says to him, "You effing bum, you could have won that fight." They didn't even think they won. Huh. But there was a lot of politics in Winnipeg in boxing, and the Winnipeg people that control Winnipeg boxing, kind of mafia-oriented people, didn't want me in the town becoming known and get a following because they had a son that they were trying to build to be the local kid. And so I think they made sure that the judges didn't make sure I didn't win if it went a decision. Mm-hmm. We fought a rematch. If you look on my record, we fought a rematch. I knocked them out in the first or second round in a rematch because I broke my hand in the first round of the first fight.
Wow.
So, so I didn't even think I lost the first fight, but anyway, I did, and so I fought a rematch and knocked them out.
And you got them in 2. How'd it feel to get revenge on the guy?
Yeah, it felt great.
And after reeling off another 8 wins in a row, fight for your first pro title, you fight against Roddy McDonald for the Canadian light heavyweight title. How did you feel going into that fight? Were you nervous at all?
Was I nervous at all? Actually, funny enough, because that was the whole story. The story was that the Winnipeg, for the same political reason, the Winnipeg Boxing Commission suspended me from boxing because they said I didn't deserve to be in the same ring as Roddy McDonald. that he would actually kill me, hurt me or kill me, and they weren't going to be part of that. That was their stance on behalf of the promoter to keep me out. So this guy that became my promoter at the time worked with me in Kitchener to buy television time and, of course, sell the advertising, and so that we could show on national television in Canada that I won the title and that I did belong in the ring. So we promoted it in Kitchener, my hometown, and before the fight, the rumor was I was so afraid I wouldn't show up. And when the fight time came that I was supposed to be at the arena, I wasn't there. And so that just confirmed everybody's thoughts, and they all started panicking, and they sent somebody to my hotel to find me. And they found me in my room, but I was asleep. So that's how nervous I was.
Yeah. And then, how did it feel when you won that title?
Oh my gosh!
The Canadian champ.
Yeah. In Canada, it was a pretty big thing, right?
Yeah.
Of course, after I won the title and tried to talk St. Pete Susans and Bruce Trampler at Top Rank into signing me for Top Rank, I said, "What do you?" They made me an offer, and I went, "I can't believe that's all you can offer. That's all I can get. Like, I mean." Well, guys realize I'm Canadian champion. And Bruce says, "Well, Donny, in New York, that belt and 25 cents will get you a cup of coffee."
Oh, wow.
But in reality, it's probably all it meant. It meant nothing in the States. But to me, it was the whole world, you know. Well, I got a world ranking out of it, right? It was number 9 and number 10 in the world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You got to be feeling good about yourself still. It's a pretty belt, you know?
Yeah, it is nice.
You still have it?
No.
No. After that fight, you made quick work of Jimmy Gratson. What do you remember about that fight?
Well, I remember it was the first time I went into a fight after having had sex within, I'd say, a couple of weeks of a fight. And I, generally speaking, was a very hard-working, hard-training guy. But and even for that fight I was. But see, George Chuvalo trained this kid, and he came in with this 37-2 record or 37-3 record or something. I can't remember when we fought. And I had about 12 fights. And the big word was, this is George Chuvalo's guy. He's just like George. He's going nowhere. Nobody's ever knocked him out. He's not been off his feet. If nothing else, it's going to be a long night. Well, as I'm thinking in the dressing room about how I screwed up, and, you know, you read the books about how, boy, fighters have sex anywhere close to a fight, their legs are going to be weak. My legs were so freaking weak, I was so scared going into that fight that I didn't think I could last 12 rounds because I had sex 2 weeks earlier. So going into the fight, I literally said to the guy in my corner, I don't know if I can walk all the way to the ring. My legs were so weak, I was so nervous. And then within 90 seconds, he was down 3 times and the fight was over.
I guess sex worked for you.
Never thought of it that way, but I should have thought of that.
I guess just put it in your training regimen. That's a fun way to train. Then you got your chance against Willie Edwards for the NABF light heavyweight title. What happened in that fight?
It was a good fight. It was, we had, what's his name, Michael Spinks' guy, Butch Lewis, and Don Majeski in town. They had announced that the winner was going to get to fight Michael. I'd been trying to get Michael to fight for a couple of years, and so it was a huge night for me. Again, I promoted it. I got national television in Canada, and I knocked him down in the 4th, had him cut, had him hurt, just like the Leonard fight. Totally in control in the early part of the fight. As soon as he went down, first the thought that went to my mind as I went to the corner was, all I have to do is hit him one more time and he won't get up. If he gets up again, I only have to hit him once more and it's over. Because that wasn't even that clean of a shot. And I know I've got a lot more power than that. So I kind of stopped fighting my style, which set myself up for those right hands, and started waiting and watching, just like in the Leonard fight. And the momentum changed. But then I caught him, like, say, in the 7th round late. And in between the 7th and 8th round, his corner said that his glove was cut. So they had to change it. Well, in the 8th round, he hit me with a shot that literally felt like I was hit with a baseball bat. I had never been hurt, really, even in a boxing ring. And I didn't even know my own name, for a while. In fact, in between the 8th and 9th round, if you look at the tape, I look completely clear. And then my trainer, are you okay? I'm like, yep, no problem. I stand up. I can't even stand up. I fell down like 3 or 4 times within the first few seconds of the 10th round or 9th round without him even hitting me. I was completely out of it. And get this, 20 years later, a friend of mine, I was the promoter of the fight, remember, so I hired a friend of mine. I said, you take care of this guy, I don't know you. Be fair to him, and, I got to try and wear 2 hats here, so, just be good to him and take care of him. So he worked his corner, and in between these rounds, when they were changing gloves, something happened. But he never told me about it for 20 years. Because what happened is he saw them changing when they were changing the gloves, putting brass knuckles on his left hand.
Oh, my God.
And when he saw them see them do that, they just gave him the signal in the throat, cut your throat, and put their finger to their mouth, and then put their finger to their throat, and said, essentially, you say something, you're dead. And he was so scared, he didn't tell me for 20 years.
Wow.
20 years later, he phoned me and said, I have to talk to you. Something's been bothering me for 20 years. I just have to get off my chest. I saw him and he told me the story. I was like, Jesus, you knucklehead. All you had to do was wait for him to get in the ring and then pull the referee or the supervisor down and say, check his gloves,
Yeah.
I know, but you told me to be fair to leave, to not, treat, act as if I'm working on your behalf. Well, Jesus, I mean, there's a line you can go. He almost killed me. But anyway, so that's what I remember about that fight. Is that was the hardest I was ever hit with anything, and it certainly wasn't a fist.
Yeah. Man. What do you think of things like Antonio Margarito getting found with like loaded gloves and things like that in the sport? What should they do with people like that?
Well, I haven't experienced that. I mean, I think they should, I don't know, how about, change the outcome of that fight, make it a no contest maybe, and then B, fine them a lot of money. Because one thing fighters, I mean, a trainer might be able to talk you into a lot of things, but one is not going to be coming up with $50,000 if you get caught doing what he's suggesting you should do, for instance. Sure, it wasn't the fighter's idea.
So you don't think that jail time should be,
I don't think what?
Jail time maybe? I mean, it is a weapon. Brass knuckles and
It is a weapon. I mean, yeah. I mean, I guess so. I never even thought of that, but I guess so,
Yeah. So much
Yeah, I
cheating
mean,
on that.
legal charges,
Yeah. And then, where were you after that fight from a mental standpoint? Did you felt these kind of punches that, did you know they weren't actual punches? Did something tell you that, or were you like, wow, I can't believe how hard the guy hit?
He only hit me once, clean with that shot.
Uh-huh.
And like I said, I didn't even know my own name. Literally almost till the next day.
Damn.
So I didn't really think much. I don't even know what I was thinking. The only other time I was hit and had that kind of effect was against Bobby Chen.
Okay.
And he hit me with the left hook in our cruiserweight title fight. And I didn't even know I was in a fight till the 5th round.
Wow.
But other than that, those are the only 2 times really that I got, sort of hurt, you would say, like that. Or I didn't know, what's going on. And so, yeah, I don't know. I didn't think a lot about it because I didn't even know name.
Yeah. And after that Willie Edwards fight, is that when you hooked up with Teddy Atlas as your trainer?
Let me see. After the Edwards fight, I fought Jamie Featherman Howe on ESPN. They agreed to give me one more shot. I broke both hands in that fight. Al Bernstein called it the most boring fight of the year on ESPN. It was only your fault. That was your fault, Al. If you had told him I had a broken hand in the first round, the rest of the fight would be dramatic. If you told him I had a broken hand in the 3rd round, the other broken hand would have been even more dramatic. You screwed that up. But, no, and then went to the hospital afterwards, and they wanted more money than I was getting paid for the fight. I put X-ray and put casts in my hand. I went back to the post-fight party, drank tequila till they closed, and then drove for 23 hours to Winnipeg from Wheeling, West Virginia, and got free medical to get my hands fixed.
Wow.
Not fixed, but put a cast on.
Yeah. Now, when you did hook up with Teddy Atlas as your trainer, and you trained with him for 8 fights, you ended up firing Teddy Atlas. What was the reason you fired him and wanted to get away from him?
I just wasn't developing. I was. Teddy and I are very different people. He's a very sort of like military. I don't know how to say it. Very military-minded. Like when you come into the room, you got to look him in the eye. You got to shake his hand like really hard. You got to hold. He would like yell at you for, like the weirdest. I don't know. He was just a weird guy. Well, like the best analogy is the Mike Moore thing with the telephone. Who's going to go to the ring and try and embarrass this guy in front of the whole world or his family or whatever?
Yeah.
Point across. There's no other way to get it across. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. He's just like the kind of guy that's he feels like that by demeaning you, maybe, to inspire you.
Yeah.
But what he did is he broke me down. He didn't build me up. I was the kind of person who was broken down, and physically I had a lot of injuries, and mentally I was very strong and sharp. Like I'm not like afraid of like boxing. I'm not, I put everything on the line for boxing. And as you know, I didn't have a lot of amateur background, so I learned how to fight in the gyms. I mean, I fought wars with Marvin Johnson for years. I ran bars with all kinds of great fighters. But Teddy just had a way of I don't know. I guess the negativity just broke me down. It didn't build me up.
Mm-hmm.
And so Dave was noticing that I was becoming more and more injured and less enthusiastic. I wasn't gaining a lot. I wasn't, evolving as a fighter. So Dave and I decided that our relationship with Teddy wasn't working for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so we fired him. It happens every day in boxing, every day in life.
Yeah. And people don't know what happened for the most part. I know I didn't know about this. Bring me through the whole story. Now you found out years later, after Teddy Atlas wrote his book, he admitted to trying to kill you. Now, how did you feel when you found that out? Were you surprised at all?
I guess I can't really say I was surprised because Teddy was, he was proud of the fact that he was crazy.
Mm.
He took pride in having taken a knife and chased Donny Poole with it, or taken a crowbar and got into a fight in the back lane in the gym, with one of the other trainers, and punched Hector Camacho, I think, one time, or his trainer or somebody. And Teddy, in that case, and he kind of like is proud. He wears that like a shield. So when he said it, from that perspective, I wasn't surprised so much as I was shocked that he would admit to literally committing I would have to think, pretty serious crime. Premeditated murder, or the act of planning a murder and going, that it may not be a crime, but it's a pretty crazy thing to do and to acknowledge.
Mm-hmm.
And so really, I as soon as I felt shocked, I equally just as quickly felt pity for him and compassion. I was like, God, I hope he's healthier than that.
Mm.
Now, I guess it was not that long ago he wrote the book. He must be mentally disturbed, literally.
Yeah.
Like he should kill somebody for being fired. How many people in the world get fired?
Yeah.
They don't kill people because they get fired.
Yeah.
And he had nothing to do with my success.
Yeah.
I was rated number 8, I think, in the world before I got with Teddy.
Mm-hmm.
I had 8 fights against basically mediocre guys because I didn't have enough going on to fight better guys. In the 11 months or whatever I was with them. And then I had a great career when I was finished with them.
Yeah.
So really, Teddy can lay no claim to the success of my career. Did he help me at all? Sure he did. Did those fights help? Sure they did. Not saying that, but generally speaking, he was pretty much a non-issue in my life.
Yeah.
And so, I don't really get where, I guess he was trying to sell a book. That's all I can think of.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why else a person would try and sensationalize. And Chris Reed isn't alive anymore to talk about it. He's about the only one that was there every day to, sort of define what happened and what didn't happen. But, he lied so much in that thing, talking about all these different examples of stupid stuff that was so untrue. And just had no basis of even a point of reference. It was literally like a fantasy out of the brain. And so, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it. It's really unfortunate that he's that disturbed at this point in his life that he would actually write such a thing. I feel for him.
I couldn't believe when I read about that. And add to the time that he went after a young Mike Tyson with a gun to his head because he didn't like something Tyson did, I think he's pretty insane, if you ask me.
That's what I'm saying. I can't even believe it. He's a commentator.
Yeah, I can't believe he gets the respect he gets and a foundation and I can't believe it.
Yeah, it really is crazy.
Why is this guy free?
Exactly.
And he has the nerve to call like Mike Tyson a coward and stuff, but he's always approaching people with guns and stuff, Who's the coward?
Exactly.
Strange. But you didn't know about it for years, and when you found out, how did you feel after you found? Did you talk to him ever since then, though? Or did you just chalk it up to he's crazy?
Really funny. What's funny is I was at the Foreman fight. I think when Foreman was fighting, I can't remember. Foreman was fighting somebody, in Vegas, and Teddy, of course, Teddy was training Moore. That's right. So I was in the Moore fight, and it might have been Moore Holyfield. I can't remember, but anyway, I saw Teddy there in the hallway, and I was so happy to see him. I hadn't seen him in all those years. I never even thought about the fact he was fired. You know, I mean, it was so past my mind what had happened between us. And I was just so happy for him because I had read how he was the trainer of a heavyweight champion of the world. And Teddy trained me when I was 28 years old. And it was like, we're both living a dream. Could I become world champ? Could he train a world champ? I did my thing, and then he did his, so I was happy for him. And I literally just went up to him, tapped on the shoulder from behind, and stuck my hand out to say, hey, Teddy, congratulations, you know? Mm-hmm. And as I was saying that, he looks at me and he goes like, what the fuck? And he pushes, me back. Kind of didn't really push him back. He kind of stepped back, and he started yelling and screaming, are you fucking crazy? Don't come up here and talk to me. No, like a complete freaking raving maniac in front of all these people. And I just went, Jesus, Teddy, I'm sorry. I only just wanted to tell you congratulations. I'm happy for you. Bye, you know. And he's just not. He's literally not. I mean, that was like 10 years later. However long it was, 5 years later. It was like, blew my mind. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know really what to say about Teddy is. I mean, I wish the best for the guy, and I'm sorry that he feels the way he does, but I'm sorry you weren't really relevant in my life or my career, and I hope he can become mentally sane.
Yeah. Some magic happens and he becomes mentally sane. Yeah, he's got a long way to go. I could tell when he talks to people, even still to this day, he has, rage problems. Like,
major, what's it called? Chip on his shoulder, right?
Yeah. I guess that's what it is, a chip on his shoulder. And after Teddy, who trained you after Teddy?
Bobby Cassidy. Tommy Gallagher was assigned to be my trainer by Dave Wolf, my manager. Mm-hmm. And Tommy had a partner in training, which is Bobby Cassidy. And Bobby and I really connected more on a personal level and more on a boxing level. Mm-hmm. And it was really, to me, in my heart, Bobby who took me from where I was to become championship material. And Tommy was there, but I'm not taking away from Tommy because he was definitely there. He was definitely involved. It was more like it was his gym. He would bring and get the sparring partners. I know he was helping Dave in the back scenes with title fights and Leonard fight and all that stuff. Tommy was very relevant to my career. But as a trainer, I got to say that Bobby Cassidy is who I learned the most from, got the most from, and accomplished the most with.
Yeah. And then after you fought the guy who fought Hagler for the middleweight championship, Mustafa Hamsho. What was it like fighting Hamsho? It was a dirty fight that night, wasn't it?
Yeah. A little dirty. Hamsho was very good at elbows, headbutts, and low blow combos. But I actually enjoyed the fight because it's why I got into the boxing. Not to be foul, but I got into it, to fight real fighters. And Hamsho was a guy I respected as a real fighter. Sure, he was an animal, he was a maniac, and might have been, against the law or rules or whatever. But I liked his spirit, and I loved the fight. It was just a war for 12 rounds in Madison Square Garden, sold out. It was insane. It was so wonderful.
Yeah,
it was probably, to that point, the night of my life in boxing, of course.
Yeah, that was your first fight in the Garden, right?
No, actually, I had fought. What's the kid's name? Terrence Top Cat Walker is on my record. Terrence Walker, I fought the guard before that. So then I fought Hamsho. Mm-hmm. Sorry.
How'd you feel the first time you were fighting in the Garden? What's that like?
Oh my God, it's just the biggest thrill a kid can have, right? Canadian kid, how many being good to fight in the Garden?
Yeah.
That was really great.
Some people don't respect the place so much, but yeah, I would love it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah. That night you won the WBC Continental America's title at the Garden against Hamsho. How'd that feel? You're working your way up the ladder and getting closer and stuff to the world title.
Well, it's funny that of course, the night of the fight was unbelievable. We had a great post-fight party. A lot of great, New York Rangers were there. A whole bunch of people. A lot of things things that happen in New York. Once you sort of make it, all of a sudden people start showing up in your life, and all of a sudden beautiful women are all around, and all the athletes, and not just hockey players, and just different things. Life becomes very interesting. All of a sudden all the doors are open in the city instead of closed, and there are no lineups you get in anywhere, and so it was really a lot of fun. But a funny anecdote to that fight was the day after the fight, Dave calls me. He goes, "How you feeling?" I said, "Oh my God, I'm so happy, blah, 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 He goes, "Nothing, how physically?" I said, "Great, I feel great, Dave, no problem." He goes, "That was a tough fight." I said, "Yeah, I'm all right." He goes, "Well, call me tomorrow and tell me how you feel." I said, "Okay." And when I woke up, I couldn't move. I opened my eyes, and nowhere in my body would move. So, funnily enough, if he knew, he phoned me. The phone rings. Eventually, I answer it. And I go, "Dave." He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Now I know what you were asking yesterday." He goes, "Yeah, I thought this would happen today or yesterday." I said, "I cannot move a muscle in my body." And he goes, "I know." He goes, "Don't worry. Let's, get you a massage, and it'll all come out." It's just, it was a tough fight. It was a great fight. It was a freaking war, and I just loved it.
Warrior. Your next fight is for the WBC World Light Heavyweight Championship. And you're fighting Eddie Davis for it. What was that fight like?
Well, as the record shows, it didn't end up being much of a fight.
Yeah.
But that wasn't the way the boxing experts had planned for it to be.
Mm-hmm.
So leading up to the fight, of course, I was very nervous. Everything in my life was put on the line for boxing. It was all about winning a world title. And all of a sudden there it was. Now, in the training camp for that fight leading up, literally every day I would sit outside this lake and kind of like meditate, pray before I'd run. And what would go through my mind wasn't like anything in fear about the fight. It was about like, if I won, I'm actually champion of the world. This Donny Lalonde, this beaten down little poor kid from East Vancouver, really worthy of being world champion of the world, blah, blah, blah. And so there was that kind of thing going on in my head. Did I deserve it? Are the experts of boxing right? You read all the magazines from those days about the fight. All they said was I was unorthodox, I was unathletic, I was uncoordinated, I was inexperienced. The only reason I got the fight was because Dave Wolf got another white guy a shot. And Eddie Davis is too schooled. He fought Michael Spinks. He's going to destroy me. Blah, blah, blah. I didn't blow out in the ring. So, all these things are playing in your head.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, the fight literally lasted a few seconds more than a round. I mean, I destroyed him. Yeah. So you can only imagine the relief. It was just, more than anything, it was relief.
Yeah.
And then coming down the stairs, Tommy Gallagher grabbed my head and put his mouth to my ear, and he goes, "Donny Lalonde, you're the WBC light heavyweight champion of the world. Nobody can ever take this away from you. You be proud of yourself, man." And that pretty much summed it up. I mean, it was like the coup de grace. It was done. I completed my objective in boxing, which is to become world champion. It's still surreal to even hear myself say this to you, but yeah, I fulfilled a very improbable, unlikely dream and fantasy for a Canadian kid, especially in that weight class. When I grew up, I was watching Matthew Saad Muhammad, Marvin Johnson, Michael Spinks, was the other, Mustafa Muhammad. I mean, these are great fighters. Yeah. These aren't guys that you sit at home thinking, I'm going to not beat these guys. You got to become world champion, but you got to beat these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's Michael Spinks as a champ the whole time. I was number 8, 9, 7, 6, 5, and Michael Spinks quite an ominous sort of feat or task. So, yeah, of course, it was ultimately exciting for me.
Yeah. And how did you find out that Leonard was looking to fight you?
Tommy Gallagher told me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually just before the Davis fight. He pulled me out of the gym one day and he goes, "We gotta go for a walk." I went for a walk and he goes, "I'm gonna ask you a question." I said, "Okay, what's that?" And he goes, "Would you fight Sugar Ray Leonard for $1 million?" I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Would you fight Sugar Ray Leonard for $1 million? Just yes or no?" Got an answer to my trainer. So you can fight him for nothing. It's Sugar Ray Leonard. He's one of the greatest fighters of all time. I'd love to fight him. And Tommy said, "Don't ever say that again. Be quiet." "Okay. So you'll fight him for $1 million." I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Good, but we're going to get a lot more than that." "What are you talking about?" He goes, "You just take care of your business. You win the world title, might have to defend it once. He goes, I'm working on that fight and it's going to happen. So, Tommy, like I said, he was very much involved in the back scenes of my career. Wasn't so much of a trainer per se, more like a, he was the antithesis of Teddy Atlas.
Mm-hmm.
He was like a cheerleader, like he really built you up and made you feel good about yourself. And as you focus on your positive, he goes, forget your left hand. Let's just focus on what you have. You can punch like a mule with your right hand. We're going to knock out everybody. Don't need your left hand, stuff like that. He was just very positive and very upbeat.
Yeah.
So he was awesome that way. I mean, technically, he wasn't so, that wasn't his strongest suit, but he was really great as an inspiration. He was a big inspiration for me.
Yeah. What was the hype like? Did it feel surreal to you? The pre-fight hype?
The Leonard fight?
Yeah, the press conferences and the media coverage. It was global.
By the time the Leonard fight had happened, I set 3 goals for myself in boxing. One was to win a world title. Another was to meet the girl of my dreams, because I didn't have the confidence I would do it unless I did something crazy. I'd become a world champion. And the other was to become financially independent. So by the time I fought Leonard, you got to remember, I won a world championship at 175 pounds, beat a guy that came very close to beating Michael Spinks a couple years earlier. I then fought and beat in his home country, Leslie Stewart. So walking into that fight, I actually crazy, but I actually was overconfident. I was unreasonably overconfident. I just thought, at 175 pounds, which is hard, with as hard as I'm punching, I mean, I don't care how great a fighter is. If he's only a natural 147-pounder, as soon as I hit him, this fight's over. And as if I'm never going to hit him. So I took the fight very lightly. I was overconfident. I fell asleep again in the dressing room. Dave, I kept saying to Dave, one day Leonard's going to wake up one morning and he's going to realize I'm 32 years old, which remember back then we thought was old as fighters. And he's 32 years old. He's overweight. He was, 5 pounds heavier than his best, you know what I mean? But foolishly, I was just thinking, I remember back then, I don't know if you remember, but we didn't think fighters of that weight could fight past 30 years old. Back then, at 28, 29 years old, smaller weight classes they were done. They were retired. That was late for them. So, I mean, to me, going into that fight and training for that fight, the whole thing, I just thought it was ridiculous. I'm getting paid millions of dollars. Like back then, $6 million then is like $30 million today. I'm getting paid this much money to fight a 147-pounder.
Yeah.
So, I wasn't at all nervous going into that fight. I ought to have been more now, looking back at it.
Yeah.
So, I fell asleep in the dressing room, but then going into the fight, of course, I got very excited about all the, the anticipation and on the crowd and all that. I mean, winning the world title was the biggest thing in my career to me. Making the money from the Leonard fight was huge, but I was pretty much finished. I had done my goal. So it wasn't the biggest deal to me. Although I loved it, I was honored. I loved the opportunity I had, and I was honored to get it. And I've never lost the nature of how spectacular event that was in my life. But it wasn't winning a world championship. It wasn't. It was making the money, but that's not the boxing thing we're talking about. And then coincidentally, 3 weeks before the fight, I met the girl of my dreams that I'm still married to today. So going into the fight, God, everything was already in the bag. I didn't really it was just one of those things where I felt great going into the fight. I just thought I was going to go in, knock her out, retire, and move on.
Yeah. No, so you already plan to retire. I think you were even saying that before the fight, did you?
Yeah, I was pretty much done. Like I said, I had set my goals, I had fulfilled them, and I was done.
Yeah, I was really young at the time, but I feel like I remember hearing that, during the hype for the fight. How'd you feel when you were in Ray's company before the fight, like during the conferences? Did you feel like a huge size advantage?
I definitely felt a size advantage, yes.
Uh-huh.
But, I mean, it was kind of like, almost kind of perplexing. Because Ray wasn't real comfortable in his own skin. And after we were going to do an 8-city tour on a private jet, and after the second city, I think, started flying commercial. Because he said, well, what Dave told me is he couldn't understand why I wasn't nervous and why I was, like, sort of friendly to him. And so he was uncomfortable with all that. It was kind of like a weird relationship beforehand.
Yeah.
But he was always, you know, he was nice enough to me. He was, you know, considerate enough. He was respectable enough. I can't really say anything bad about him, but it's just that it wasn't much of a gel of a relationship before that. We've actually become friends, and you know, we stay in touch, and you know, we'll do things together. We'll plan to, you know, contribute to anything each other's doing or whatever. Contemplated and worked hard towards being in a very big business together about 10 years ago, or maybe more. So, you know, we have a great relationship. I really love Ray. I'm really happy for him where he's at in his life.
And how great was that? I'm sorry. I thought you were done. How did the fight go? How do you remember it? Do you remember it as being a positive event, and or were you over? What do you think of that fight when you think back to it? Good memories, or are you kind of depressed that you didn't try to overpower more? And
I don't know. I fought exactly my fight for the first 4 rounds. And then exactly like I told you earlier, what happened in the Edwards fight happened in that fight.
Yeah.
As Ray went down and I started walking towards the neutral corner, I thought to myself, I hit him one more time, this fight's over. And after that, I started watching him and waiting for him to leave an opening for me to land that punch. Of course, Ray's not dumb enough to do that, especially after being knocked down. So that never happened again.
No.
And I had started, you know, realizing what I was doing, so I got back sort of focused. And you can see in the 8th round, I was quite effective. In the 9th round, other than about the first 30 seconds, which was just neutral, I completely dominated him. And I was actually the ref to stop the fight when he stopped it, or when just before it ended. And as I was looking at him, Ray realized I wasn't focused, and he just stepped in and landed a punch, knocked me down, and then threw a million punches and crushed my larynx with one of them because I left my hands down, lifted my head up. And the fight was over before I knew it. I mean, I was just completely blown away that I lost that fight. I thought it was so in the bag, I was asking the ref to stop it.
Wow. Shocking.
Yeah, I was shocked.
What's
it called? Something Tonight, Entertainment Tonight, when Ed was interviewing me afterwards, my girlfriend was with me, who's now my wife, and they asked me a question. I didn't even listen. I just went, I can't fucking believe I lost that fight. Excuse my language. But that's exactly what I said right on television, because I just literally couldn't believe I lost that fight because I was so in the bag.
Yeah. And what did Ray say to you after that fight? Do you remember anything about?
You know, I don't really remember.
Yeah. I just
we met a week later. We met a week later to the HBO thing. It was awesome.
Yeah. I just want to let the people know that it was because of this fight Teddy Atlas tried to murder you. He heard that you were making $6 million, and he knew that he would be entitled, if he was your trainer, he would have been entitled to $600,000 because he's getting 10%.